I want to introduce our two speakers today. We have with us Andrea Smith. She's the Program Director for the Northern Border Regional Commission. She is a wealth of information, and I witnessed firsthand very helpful in terms of assistance regarding both the program specifics as well as prioritization, and very accessible in terms of anything that you may have as questions or desired feedback that you're looking for. Kyle Wilbur is also equally helpful and a key person to know in regards to NBRC. He is the program manager for many different initiatives, but in this case, his general role is New York State Department of State, Division of Local Government Services. So with both those introductions made, the format will go where Andrea is going to give us a lead through in terms of her slides, and then Kyle will follow with a state perspective and prioritization. Two things I want to note is we will be providing these slides as well as the fact sheet that Andrea has developed for NBRC for the SEID program that we're talking about today. We'll also close out with a Q&A period. So key up your questions, your comments that you want to utilize this time for. We'll be utilizing that in the chat feature most likely, but just have those at the ready in terms of any questions you may have. So with that said, I'm going to turn things over to Andrea. Thank you to both our speakers for joining us today and being able to share information and answer questions from our audience in regards to the program. Andrea, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing, which should allow you to then share your slides.
All right. Did it show up?
Yes, you're good.
Good. Well, that's good. Something went right this morning, so I'll take it. Good morning, everybody. I'm Andrea Smith, Program Director for the Northern Border Regional Commission. Thank you for the opportunity to be in part of your workshop this morning. It's been kind of a crazy week. We released all of our 2021 program materials on Monday of this week, and over the course of the last several days have been conducting a number of outreach workshops throughout the region, promoting what we refer to as our sort of our flagship program, which is our State Economic Infrastructure Development Program. So some of my slides, for those folks who know about the commission, some of this information may be repetitive. So my intention was not to go through every specific on every slide, but for those folks who might not know about the commission or sort of how the relationship between us and the states work, I thought some of the kind of the background about the commission, kind of what our partnership looks like, what we are trying to do with this funding we've been given, and so my first few slides are really just an introduction about the commission, and I know most of the questions are going to be about our current program and all those specifics, so I don't want to monopolize time talking about things people already know about. But the first couple of slides that are part of my presentation are really just to give you, as I said, an overview of the commission. We're certainly one of a number of federal regional commissions and authorities throughout the country. So I wanted to kind of demonstrate the other commissions and also let you folks know that we were kind of designed after the Appalachian Regional Commission. And so we've really depended heavily on our partners there and also at the Delta Regional Authority as we have looked to grow the commission and really get our feet underneath us. The commission is made up of the states of Maine, New Hampshire, New York, and Vermont. So with the exception of Vermont, in which all counties are part of the commission territory, all of the other service areas are defined by federal statute and are identified on the commission service area slide. So as you will see, since we're talking about New York, I tried to highlight those counties within New York in which we do work. And then also let you know how New York is represented on the commission. So each state is represented by the governor of that state, and in most cases, well, in all cases actually, have designated what we refer to as a governor's alternate. So in each of the states, And for New York, that is Mark Pattison. And it is the governor's alternates and the federal co-chair who actually make up the decision-making authority of the commission. So they are the folks who, when we are looking to make project awards, they are the ones who vote on those. So Mark serves as the governor's alternate to the commission representing the state of New York. And then all of, sort of all the other specific duties get assigned to Kyle as the state program manager. So Kyle's really the point of contact for grantees, whether they're existing or looking to participate in the program. But it is definitely a partnership when we talk about the structure of the commission. We interact a great deal with the program managers and also with the governor's alternates. And certainly this program that we're talking about today is no exception. It's really a very busy time. It's exciting, and it's just really busy between now and May when applications are due. And so we'll kind of get into the specifics about the program, but just to kind of give you an idea of how we're structured. And then just to kind of give you an idea of what we've made for investments across the region in our 12-year history. Well, that's not good. I thought I got rid of my email. Sorry about that. I'm going to shut my email off. There. And just to give you an idea of how many awards we have. So as I said, we're pretty busy here at the commission. There's probably, I'd say out of the 287 grants or whatever, there probably are over 200 that are still open. And in some place along the spectrum are moving along. And certainly the amount of money we've been able to invest across the 4 states is very significant. And certainly this year is no exception. Our appropriation for fiscal year 2021 is 38.5 million. So it's certainly a significant growth in a very short amount of time. And we feel very fortunate that Congress has entrusted us to, with these dollars, and we make every effort to get them on the streets as quickly as possible. And so my next slide is just kind of a snapshot of what 2020 looked like for New York for this program. This year, the state will have about 4.6 million in funding, but just to give you an idea of how competitive this program is in terms of the number of applications we receive, and this again is just a snapshot for New York. We received about 140, I think, applications across the 4 states in 2020. And we do expect that number will be greater this year, especially as we've done a lot of outreach. I think people are starting to learn a little bit about us, and our names come up in funding conversations probably more often than they maybe did a few years ago. So just to kind of give you an idea of what we're looking at around the competition piece, which I'm sure Kyle will speak to much more than I will. And then, as I said, the appropriation for this year is 38.5 million for the commission. For the SEID program, 4.6 million of that is for New York. And we'll get into all the details about our economic infrastructure program and kind of the process. But I just wanted to give you a snapshot about the program itself. Like I said, we just released program materials on Monday, March 8th. If you have not visited our website at nbrc.gov, that is where we have a link from our homepage to this program page, and the overview that I shared, that's part of the information we shared as part of this workshop, and then also the application manual, which is very detailed, has a lot of really good information in it. Both of those documents are available from the program website. And I would encourage anybody who is interested in applying for this program to not just review the overview, but really the specifics that are in the manual. That's where all of our details around the scoring criteria is contained. So that, again, that's on our website. The first big date that we're looking at now that the materials have been released will be March 26th, which is the submission of letters of interest, which we are saying are very much appreciated and strongly encouraged. They have been part of the process for a number of years, but this year we are really making a dedicated effort to try and encourage potential applicants to submit a letter of interest so they can be having conversations with the states, certainly with Kyle and the other state program managers, and really have an understanding of the program and how that their project may or may not align with the priorities of the specific state, and as well as NBRC's priorities. So those are strongly encouraged and to be submitted by the end of this month, so March 26th. Applications are due May 14th. There'll be more information on our website as we get closer to opening that application portal, probably in mid-April. We typically do a FAQ type document, so people who may be their first time through this process kind of understand the application portal and how it works. So we are working on those documents now, and then we'll look to make awards by the end of August. So the process goes that the applications come in mid-May. They are reviewed by NBRC for eligibility, and then they go to the specific state for review and scoring. Once those selections have been made, then they come to the commission for a full vote, and that typically happens. I expect it to be the same timeline as last year, so it typically happens mid-August, and then following that, we make notification to both successful and unsuccessful applicants by the end of that month. And then new this year, for which we haven't done for a couple of years, we are looking to do a new grantee and LDD training program in October or November of this year. It will be virtual, and again, as that gets closer and we put some specifics together, that information will also be available on our website. And then I don't want to steal Kyle's thunder, so my next few slides are really just kind of a general overview of the purpose of the SEID program, the categories that we have, which are infrastructure, which allow up to $1 million in maximum award amount, and then those projects which are not infrastructure would be eligible for up to $350,000. So just a couple of slides about sort of the difference in those two categories and what we define as infrastructure versus non-infrastructure, which is pretty self-explanatory, but there is additional information on eligibility, further definitions around what we define as infrastructure in that application manual that I referred to. And then, as I touched on, these are just some important changes that we can discuss probably a little bit further, and I'm guessing will come up as part of the Q&A period. But the letters of interest, the state-specific and NBRC-specific scoring criteria that is in, excuse me, in the application manual. There have been some slight tweaks to some of the state-specific scoring criteria, and probably a little more significant on the NBRC side of the criteria. So I would encourage you to look at the manual, but really what we've tried to address in our changes is to eliminate sort of some of the overlap that existed around the points that you were able to get under sort of the NBRC specific, where there was overlap with some of the things that the states were asking for, such as alignment with a regional or state plan, or readiness, sustainable, those type of things, where if a state was already had that as part of their scoring criteria, we tried to take it out of ours and really focus our scoring criteria on alignment with NBRC's strategic plan, and also our directives from the federal government about the use of our money. So you will see some differences in that scoring criteria. And again, that's all contained in the application manual. We have to update our distress criteria every year. So this is the criteria which sort of defines whether or not what type of county you are, whether it's transitional or distressed, which reflects the amount of match that you would have to have. So our distress criteria is updated every year. There is a COVID-19 overlay component to the distress criteria this year, which obviously has not existed in prior years. So information on that is in the manual, but then if you really want to get into all the specifics of how we come up with this information, it is available on our website and through the link that I mentioned in our PowerPoint. And then last but not least is the directive we were given by the federal government at the end of 2020, which is around our ability to grant waivers, partial or full, of the match requirement if a grantee can demonstrate that their reason for not being able to get matched together, whether it's all of it or a portion of it, is directly related to COVID-19. So not all federal entities have been given this sort of waiver authority. We feel it's a huge tool for certainly applicants that we expect we will see throughout the region who are having difficulty getting their match together. There is a waiver guidance, and the actual affidavit to request the waiver is in the manual, the application manual. And if an applicant is looking to request a waiver of match, they just have to complete that affidavit, and it has to be submitted with their application. So it's not anything we need to see now or at letter of interest, but there is an affidavit that if they're looking to request match waiver, they do need to complete that affidavit and submit it with their application materials. And again, the applications are due the middle of May. And then just a couple other pieces. Our program materials I mentioned on our website, certainly discussing projects that may come to you and are interested in the program to really talk through project specifics with their state program manager. Certainly myself and other NBRC staff are going to be available to help with what we call programmatic questions, or you know, as we get to submission of the application, we would be providing the technical assistance if someone were to develop any issues accessing the application portal or with, you know, uploading documents. The commission will be available to assist grantees on that side. And then just making sure people utilize our documents and follow sort of the instructions around making sure when you submit documents, whether it's a letter of interest or an application, that you're submitting all of the requested documents where we are asking for you to submit. And there is a checklist in the manual as well. So we try to give people a place to reference and not expect that they remember everything we tell them. And then that's really it for me. I think we're just going to do questions at the end. So unless there was something else you wanted me to cover, I probably can just turn it over to Kyle.
Thanks, Andrea. That sounds great. Just a note before Kyle begins his portion, we are looking at the questions that have been posted so far in the Q&A, and we're looking to answer those as we move forward. So one's been answered, we're looking at the other two now, just as a heads up.
Okay.
Thanks. And now, Kyle, if you want to begin your part, welcome.
Okay, can folks see that? Yes. Move my bar. I did want to introduce or let my colleague who, if you can see the windows, there are not two Kyle Wilbers on this presentation. I guess I learned something. If you share an invite, it goes to other folks under your name. So you get to learn something every day about Zoom and WebEx and the other platforms. But let me see if I can unmute John. Some of you on the call may know John. He manages our projects for the North Country. So John, you want to say hi?
Hello, everybody. How are you today?
So as Andrea noted, the NBRC is not new in terms of regional commissions. You saw the map that she had in her presentation. In New York, believe it or not, about 3/4 of our counties are covered by regional commissions. In the green is the northern border, which we're here to talk about today, and the blue is that the Appalachian Regional Commission, which is the granddaddy of all commissions, started in 1965, and it's also managed through DOS, and it does the same thing really that the NBRC does. But what's great about these commissions is they're not, they're partnerships amongst other states too. So, with NBRC, it's Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine, and the ARC, it's 13 states that run along the spine of the Appalachian Mountains. So not only are we talking about good ideas and project development, but also challenges that all these regions face. And in NBRC, a lot of our focus has been on response to changes in the forest economy and those types of things. So unique. I like to think that what's great about the commissions is their ability to be responsive and fund a lot of different types of projects, but that's also sometimes our pitfall too, that we can do so much that sometimes it's hard to stay focused on some things. So, and Andrea noted, I think what we want to, a lot of this information is in the manual, and I know Kate just posted it. A lot of this information you can find, but I wanted to go over some of this general information today. And then I think hopefully we'll have a bunch of questions at the end where we can really dig into project ideas and what folks are thinking about. NBRC, really, most of the folks who are listening, I think probably have a good understanding of grants or have applied some in the past, but state governments, local governments, really all your normal entities that can apply for public funding are eligible, but we can't invest in for-profits or LLCs. A unique thing about NBRC that we may begin to incorporate in some of our grants at the state, at least through DOS, is we really emphasize project completion if you want to apply for multiple grants in different years. So if you don't have 75% of your project completed, we do not accept an application in a follow-up year. Funding categories, Andrea hit on this very, very well. There are basically 7 categories of funding. Infrastructure is a priority, and I'll show you, we have some facts on where our funding has gone in the past that'll sort of drive that point home about infrastructure as a priority. One ineligible use that I just want to highlight, and this is not dissimilar to the other regional commissions, but we're limited from funding business relocation. We don't want to be cannibalizing other areas businesses. So we invest in business creation, business expansion, but that's in statute. And what's unique, the funding is most times you can't, we'll talk about match, but most times you can't match federal to federal funding. These commissions enable their funding to be matched by other federal dollars. And the reason is, I believe these groups were created because there's been an historical lack of investment of federal dollars in these areas, and the creators really wanted this program to be as creative as possible in getting projects completed. Andrea hit on this again. The caps for the program match. I'll show our status of our counties and which counties are required to provide which match in a couple slides. But I mentioned you can match federal to federal, but you can't have any more than 80% federal funding in a project. So that's one stipulation regarding the use of federal funds to match the program. Eligible match is pretty broad: volunteer time, indirect rates. Andrea, give me a thumbs up. I think in the manual we talk about how to account for volunteer time, correct? Okay, so that you can read that in the manual, but again, very lenient in types of eligible match. We try to encourage multi state applications. You'll see in our review criteria that definitely multi-municipal, multi-county applications are encouraged on our state level. So it's not always easy, and we struggle at the commission level. Our bosses, my boss, our alternate, and I know the other 3 alternates, we would, they want to be regional and benefit, but it's not always easy to do. This slide is actually cut off by me, John, Kate, and Andrea, but we're only missing the Rensselaer County, Washington County, but this is our map of county designations. All but Saratoga and Rensselaer are listed as distressed. And NBRC contracts annually with an institution in New Hampshire, I think, to help us define the economic status of our counties. And that's important because, again, it deals with match things. They look at things like income, unemployment, those types of things to determine a county's economic situation. This just with this map, I'll just point out. So the commission was created in 2008. And at that time, it was only 14 counties. And it was the 14 counties that, if you think of the northern border focused on the northern forest, you would think, of course, Clinton, Essex, Hamilton, all those, northeastern counties of New York. But then in 2018 or 17 or 18, our footprint for the Northern Border Commission doubled, went from 14 counties to 28, including Sullivan and Greene and the majority of the counties on the western part of the state that are in the commission, as well as Rensselaer, Saratoga, Washington, Warren were added. So that was good news. It wasn't as good when the money wasn't getting bigger, but now that the money's growing, we're excited because we can fund more projects across the state. We get the majority of our applications still from what I'll call the traditional counties, the older counties for the commission, but we're trying to broaden out west and making some strides with that. Just some background on last year. These are the applications, and I'm going to give credit where credit's due. Our data guy, John, put these together, and they're very helpful. He's been tracking all of our investments over the last, since the commission started in New York. But last year, I guess that's Kermit the Frog green. I don't know what color that is, but the green is the percentage of public infrastructure projects we got. So we do receive a significant amount of water and wastewater projects. Not that that's not good, and not that they don't want to fund those, but we would like to see the other colors get bigger. So the commission has to fund 40% of their funding for infrastructure, which we agree is important, but we also want to do workforce and telecommunications where we can, and where it's needed, conservation, tourism, those types of things. So this is the distribution of applications across counties. Let me see. Schenectady had none. So those of you who are from Schenectady, please get to work. Saratoga had about $2 million in applications. Washington, just over 500,000. Warren, I don't think any. So you'll see Jefferson, Franklin, Clinton. They're the ones where we get the majority of our projects. This is an analysis of our awards and funding since 2010, and just over 50% of about 60% probably. My battery's running down. Holy cow! Sorry, I got two laptops hooked up, and I got to change there. You'll see again over 50%, probably closer to 60, has been for water and sewer. And just a point on that, we're not EFC, we're not the USDA, we're not the big funders for infrastructure. And while we can, again, we think that's great. The commission is supposed to invest infrastructure dollars in economic development opportunities. We're not, we want clean water, we want potable water, we want wastewater to be clean. We're not the environmental funders. So if you're considering an infrastructure project, make sure you are able to highlight what the economic benefits are. And it's not just, well, if we build it, they will come either. We'd like to see, as as realistic and legitimate return numbers as possible. So again, keep that in mind. And this is just the similar chart to the other one. These are the awards by county. These colors, the NBRC gets funding, some ancillary dollars allocated from the Department of Commerce, Economic Development Administration, as well as USDA. And, we're able to fund some other projects with their money. So again, St. Lawrence so far has been the biggest, has received the most funding. So just some background information for you all. So in the guidance, what happens with the commission, and because it's a 4-state commission, you'll see the review criteria add up to 100 points. 50 of those points are commission points. The commission doesn't score the projects, the states do, but 50%, half the points are allocated based upon commission priorities. The other half are allocated based upon whatever state you're in, their priorities. And Andrea mentioned some of the changes this year. The commission has moved some of theirs to focus on the ability to get projects going, how clear the application is, how it meets the NBRC strategic plan, and things like that. Our criteria were redone last year. And just a quick aside, and I know this went live on Monday, and when it went live, the criteria for New York State was not correct. We missed that it was the criteria that we had 2 years ago, which had been changed last year to what you'll see here. There was just a publication error. So make sure you download the application that Kate put in the chat. So financial need, we look at, I'm not going to dig into all these. We can go, more specifics, contact John and I later on, but financial need, we want to know that not only is the funding for NBRC critical to the project, we also want to know that it makes up a significant amount of the project, right? So infrastructure, last year, not that we can't fund large infrastructure projects, but oftentimes $500,000 on a $2 million project is more important than $500,000 on a $20 million project, right? So we believe if it's a $20 million project, that $500,000 will likely not determine if the project is going to move forward or not. So you'll see in our criteria, the financial need is a discussion. Project need, different than financial need. How critical is it to the community or the local government that's proposing it? For New York, we're all familiar with the economic development councils. I know last year there was with COVID, it was not much happened, but the states are required to fund things, or at least show NBRC that there's a state plan. So instead of recreating a plan, we have 10 plans around the state, right? Every economic region has an economic development council plan. So we ask you to not only tell us how your project is consistent with those plans, but also, if you can, get the specific support of the council. If you get that, that's a 5-point benefit. We just don't want projects that are thought up yesterday and try to move forward tomorrow. Links to downtowns, existing community centers, identify growth areas. We're trying to be consistent with smart growth and not investing in. I use a lot of infrastructure examples, but investing in new infrastructure at some point will have an impact on a local government's ability to pay for that future upgrades. So we want to maximize what we have in existence today. I had a question 2 years ago, I'll never forget, at the Tug Hill conference on downtowns in particular, and a gentleman who's from a small town said, "We don't have a downtown." I said, "Well, do you have a community center? Do you have a place that your local planning process has identified as a place you want to grow or invest in? That's your downtown, right? It doesn't need to be the city of Troy or city of Schenectady or Plattsburgh, those types of places. So what do you define as your downtown, and are we going to be investing in what you've determined to be actions critical to those places? Sustainability, we want to make sure that this isn't just going to be funded and these projects, they're not multi-year funding projects. This is supposed to incentivize things to get done, and then the local government or the other organizations, the school, the college, whoever is the applicant, is supposed to take that over and sustain it going forward. Regional impact, we talk about multi-municipal impact. It's all scaled. If you're just on your own, it's not going to score as well on this category. If you're doing it with other local governments, other organizations, then that'll score better. Workforce development, entrepreneurship, it's pretty straightforward. And then community infrastructure and assets, are we also leveraging historical assets or conservation type things? So very broad. Some of these may compete against each other, but we do envision certain projects that can hit all, right? If you're investing in an incubator in a downtown space that's going to help workforce, also bring infrastructure, help businesses, that might hit all the criteria. And then our final 10-point category, we want to be we want to make sure there's equity as well. We have 28 counties, right? So we try to look at the geographic distribution of our awards. If one award we think is unique enough that it can be an example for others in the future. So this 10-point category tries to capture some of that. Not that we're going to, use geographic distribution to fund a project that doesn't score that well, but there might be, if all of our top projects are from Jefferson County, and then some at the funding line are from other parts of the state, we may use this to help disperse that funding, which we think is very important. I just want to give you a couple examples now. I'm not sure what time it is. 11:45. A handful of examples of what we funded in the past, and it's pretty broad. I think I almost hit all the functions. Last year, the Development Authority of North Country applied for $200,000 to help the village of Tupper Lake extend fiber within the village to businesses, and then they're going to establish some wireless hotspots to enhance broadband in Tupper Lake. Critical project for them, really, to make their I think they have broadband, but to make it better, because businesses need to be competitive. You need adequate telecommunications. 2019, we funded a project in Orleans County with the IDA. They're upgrading 9 bridges and culverts for the Falls Road Railroad. This is a LLC. The Falls Road Railroad is managed by blank Genesee Valley Transportation. I can't think of the exact name, but again, critical to keep that short line open, right? So businesses can move their goods. So funding to help with that. 2016, Clarkson University received funding for their equipment and those types of expenses for their light manufacturing incubator. Our Clarkson's an engineering college, and they're focused a lot on transferring that to business development. Their Damon Hall is a facility where they do a bunch of startups. I remember going up there and talking to somebody about a company where they're working on some processes that will make engines run kind of without heat. So I don't know, they're much more smarter than me, but it's to be able to see some of the stuff that spins out of these places, and to enable having NBRC be able to invest in helping these organizations grow like that is really, really good. Hudson Headwaters Health Network, Town of Champlain, which is up near basically on the border with Canada, constructed a new health facility, and NBRC invested in that in 2013. against another rail project in the Port of Oswego, in Oswego County. Only deep water U.S. port on Lake Ontario, so they needed more capacity for grain, I think it was at the time. So that project is completed and successful. And then perhaps my favorite, because it might be one of my first, and up in Clayton on the St. Lawrence River, at one point there was I believe a snowplow manufacturing company, Frank America, I think it was called. They went out of business, and there was this parcel on the St. Lawrence River that was abandoned. It was a brownfield. They did a brownfield assessment planning, but they needed, and they wanted to put the hotel up there, which is beautiful now, and they needed funding to bring some of the infrastructure back to the site. So NBRC was part of that funding package to bring the infrastructure back. So really transformative type project for the village of Clayton, which is, we're happy that we were in. One of our first grants was this project. So I think that's really all I have. This is Andrea's contact info, my contact. I didn't put, I took my phone number out. We're working from home, so I find email works best, but we do check our phones. And you know, it's not that hard to get a hold of us through email. And if you want to talk to John Demarest, you can see his name up. It's just john.demarest@dos.ny.gov, replacing Kyle.Wilbur. So this has been very interesting, and I don't have anything else to share. So I'll stop, and we look forward to questions if there are any.
Thank you, Kyle. And just as a note, there have been some questions coming in through the Q&A that Kyle and Andrea have been answering as they've come in. So please take a look at those. I did move over the general application link into the chat so you can get that more generally speaking. But as noted, this is a chance now, after hearing about both application, deadlines, process, funding prioritization. I think particularly enlightening was kind of the summary of past projects, just to get kind of that insight as a potential applicant, how your project may fit or not, was extremely helpful. So if you have your questions at the ready, please put those into the Q&A, and we can go ahead and answer those as they come in. Or maybe we answered all of them already.
Yours, I see a question about Warren County being distressed. I just took the map from NBRC's, from the website. I have to look. I didn't check the differences. I mean, if that's what's on the web, if that's what's in the distress manual, that's up. That's, yeah, they're distressed.
And I just want to add that the list of counties, whether they're distressed or transitional, also is in the application manual itself. So you don't have to go look at the detailed analysis of the distress criteria, which is, as Kyle said, we have an outside entity who does all that. We are required to post that so that people understand how we develop the criteria that we do. But the actual list of transitional or distressed counties is contained within the application manual. So you don't have to go to that distress criteria, just so you're clear.
There's one about transportation infrastructure regarding construction, or could it fund scoping and planning? We're not, and Andrea, you can correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, we're not precluded from doing planning or scoping necessarily. Again, it's when we score projects, it's about return and how more immediate is that return in a sense. So, you know, we could fund it. It's just a matter of how well it would compete, in my opinion.
You're seeing them as well, but just to read one off for everyone, in the Q&A from Blue, there's our not-for-profit not-for-profits eligible for funding.
Yes. We funded, in the list of examples. I mean, one included Clarkson. We funded SUNY Canton. I know they're educational entities, but nonprofits are eligible. Sure, you have to show you have to have a certification, right, Andrea? As part of it to be funded, you have to have the
Certificate of good standing.
right. Yes.
And the IRS acknowledgement letter. Yep. That's it. That has to be submitted with your application. It's a required document. If you are a nonprofit, you do have to provide that.
One came in from Jeff that notes, do you fund local airport upgrades if they're not on the national priority list?
So we have done some airport projects. I believe Maine has done a couple of them in the last few years. Some of them are sort of, upgrades. Again, most of them have an economic development component to them. We don't refer to them having to be on a list. If that airport project is a priority for the region or the state, then that gets taken into consideration when the project is reviewed and scored. But in terms of NBRC's sort of federal criteria, there's no requirement that it be on a list.
I would say I had a really good point, and now it slipped. But I would say it's, again, back to my earlier point about being able to fund a lot of different types of projects. I always ask folks, well, why are you coming to NBRC, right? Why aren't you going to maybe some of the more traditional funders? So if there's airport funding, we'd want to know, why you're not getting it, or why this will augment that, or why it's, a key sort of phase of development. Same thing with other infrastructure. So that'd be my position on it.
Okay, any other questions from folks in the audience? I think it's a sign, Kyle and Andrew, that your presentations were that thorough. You covered all the bases.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just sorry to take. I know it's probably lunchtime. Folks are hungry, but you can tell I like these programs. What's also unique about it is, and maybe they're not recognized as well as they should be yet, but folks like CDRPC and Kate and Lake Champlain, Lake George Regional Planning Board, Genesee Finger Lakes, there are a handful of regional planning entities that maybe didn't know it, but they were included in the legislation as local development districts, we call them, and they're available to help with project administration, but also, we're hoping to get them more involved, and this is a part of it, and sort of more recognize their role a little more specifically in helping us generate projects, because at the state level we don't have a handle all the time on what the needs are in the regions, and that sort of third leg of the development process, NBRC, state, and then these regional entities is really critical. So we're new, we're 10 years old, but in bureaucratic life, 10 years is still a newborn, I think. And, we're trying to get better at it and bring about more of these partnerships, which hopefully will grow.
And to your point, Kyle, as a reminder, just for folks out there, if you're still relatively new to NBRC, for our counties that we note in the capital region, it's only been, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, under 2 years, too.
2018.
Right. So it is still a relatively new funding opportunity. And we are happy as an LDD to both have those conversations, which we have many of, in terms of initial project ideas. I'm checking my email, and I'm getting the emails coming in terms of, hey, can we talk about potential ideas? So we are happy to, it's really a team effort. We're happy to kind of serve that role. Obviously, we do have kind of a regional sense of other projects, other things that may be able to straddle municipal lines, for example, which you saw is a scoring priority in terms of looking at projects on a regional scale. We're also in our different capacities, an overall liaison, I think, to federal resources. That's one of our goals. So we have a strong state in terms of our EDC and funding opportunities in New York State. But I think a lot of times bringing these federal resources more in front of people and creating more of an awareness, programs like NBRC are great. One of the reasons is because they can blend well, that I've seen, with other funding sources and programming opportunities. So the fact that it plays nicely on its own, but also with other funding opportunities is great if you're a community trying to put the pieces together, which typically can be quite a challenge, and really look for that enhancement of state, local, and then federal sources that could help you get to the finish line in funding your project overall. So I would just say, keep all of us in mind. You have the contact information that was provided by Kyle and Andrea very helpfully, and John as well. Don't want to leave you out, John, as well as contacting us for any questions that you have. So I'll put out the question one more time for any other questions or items. Otherwise, as a reminder, we'll send out the slides as well as the fact sheet that Andrea created for this particular program, and then reach out with any other questions or wonderings, which there are many, in terms of a potential project application. And hopefully you're all now aware in more of a capacity for 2021 of this resource and able to kind of factor it into your thinking for bringing your project or projects to completion, which is key.
Kate, there was one question that someone asked about cooperative extensions. Yes, they can be part of it. I believe it was a couple of years ago, we had a project application come in that included Cornell Cooperative Extension and some food producers to create kind of a food co-op and help expand the market where they could distribute the foods that they're producing. So yes, you can include those.
That's helpful. Thanks for mentioning that, John. Okay, great. Kyle, Andrea, John, any other words that you'd like to mention?
It's the first call I've been on that nobody's dog has barked. So that's a positive.
Yeah. Yesterday, in the middle of one of my presentations, the tea kettle went off. So like, it's just, welcome to Zoom, right?
Yeah. It's a testament to how used to it we're all getting. Well, I want to thank you all for joining us, both our panelists who provide some great information and guidance, as well as those joining us. Enjoy your weekend, and again, reach out with any other questions or thoughts moving forward.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.